A lot of people, when they first start learning the piano, don't know what the path is going to look like. And I wanted to talk about what I consider to be the path to artistry. I have kind of three very broad stages in the learning process, and it's helpful to know these when you just start out playing the piano or if you've been studying a little bit, because knowing where you are on this path will give you a little bit of direction. And I'm going to also give you a book at the end that I think will be very, very helpful, not only in piano, but in any long-term goal that you have that I've just found to be an incredible resource. So let's talk about the three steps on your journey from complete beginner through artistry at the piano. So the first stage, of course, is the complete beginner stage. And that's where you're really kind of a babe in the woods. Everything's new to you. And at this stage, you're really focused on learning the very fundamentals at the piano. I like to think of this as the stage where you don't even know what you don't know. And if you know a lot about psychological studies of people thinking that they know a lot more than they do because they just have no sense of how much there is to learn. They don't even know where the boundaries of knowledge are. So like I said, everything's new. At this stage, you're really learning about the keys at the piano. You're learning the basics of note reading, of harmony, the very, very fundamentals of just how to get around. And it's very normal to be very excited and also very confused at this stage. And I always recommend that people have some sort of guide. You want either a teacher or it can be online lessons or anything, because if you just start out on your own, you might be underestimating how difficult it is to follow the correct steps. Someone who's worked with hundreds of students really just knows how to get you from knowing nothing up to knowing a lot at the piano, and gets you through those first few stages. I can tell you that when I first started teaching the piano, I didn't know how to do this, but then after you've gone through 100 students, you really get a sense of like, okay, this is what works and this is what doesn't work and this is what I have to do. You've reached the second stage. Now this can take months, it can take sometimes a year or so, because it does take a while and some consistency to really get to the destination where you can start to explore more interesting musical things. And this second stage is where you're on the master's journey. This is where you've plateaued a little bit, so you're not making those incredible strides that you make at the beginning, but you're on this master's journey of exploring all sorts of different facets of music and starting to integrate what you've learned. So in the first stage, you might have learned note names, you might have learned keys, you might have learned things like that, and you might have played some simple things just to help you kind of, wake your fingers up, learn some fundamentals of technique. But you haven't really explored much on your own in a style that particularly interests you. There's not as much room for creativity in that first stage. Of course, it can be fun and creative in that sense, but there's really just stuff that you have to learn. Now, in the master's journey stage, there's a little bit more optionality, because now you know the fundamentals. You're not kind of looking at the piano going, I don't know what key that is, and things like that. But you can take a look at different pieces. You might have different types of repertoire that interest you, different styles like pop or jazz or classical. And with a good guide, you can take those pieces and start to integrate them into your practice, so that while you're still building your technique up and you're still practicing your scales and doing all that stuff that you would have learned in the first stage, you're integrating this into pieces that interest you more. Now this stage starts to become that long journey where you have a plateau and you're not so much engaged in the dopamine hits that you get when you're learning something new as you are in just really enjoying learning all this broad stuff there is to know about music and integrating this. Now, this journey never really has an end, but I do like to think of there being a third stage to this process, and this doesn't usually occur until after several years. Not many people get to this third stage, but I call it the artistry stage. And I don't mean that in any sort of kind of snobbish way like, oh, I'm an artist. But what I mean is you get to the third stage when you've got the fundamentals down, you're not having to worry about that anymore, and you've more made music a part of your life. And so while the beginning stage, the first stage of learning, is more exciting because of those dopamine hits that you're getting, because you're learning everything more quickly. The third stage, the artistic stage, is more exciting because of the satisfaction, the kind of deep meaning that you're getting out of the music. And so this third stage, it doesn't have an end. You never really reach the goal, but you will find that you get to that point where music becomes kind of inextricably linked to who you are. It becomes a part of your identity in the sense that you don't only just enjoy listening to it, but you enjoy exploring it from the perspective of the musician. And that's a really wonderful place to be. It's a very satisfying place to be. And it is worth all the trouble and sometimes even the pain of going through those first couple stages. So if you do want to go on this journey, I think it's good to think ahead of time, or as much as you can in the learning process, of where it is that you're going and how you're going to stay consistent. I've talked in other videos about how you can develop a habit of practicing so that you are consistent day after day and week after week over those years that you need to reach that level of artistry. And another thing that's really helpful to get to this third stage is to read this book. This is not a plug for the book, but I do love it. It's called Mastery by George Leonard. You don't want to get, there's another book that may or may not be good I haven't read called Mastery by someone else, but the one that I like is the one called by George Leonard. It's a pretty short read. You can probably read it in a long afternoon. It's very enjoyable. It's an easy read. And he talks about the different learning styles. And I can tell you that if you teach long enough, you will encounter all the different learning styles that he talks about in this book. So he talks, for instance, I think about what he calls the dilettante, which is someone who's just dipping in. He talks about the type of person who's very, very excited all at the beginning, but then fizzles out. And he has terms for all of these. And listen, there's nothing wrong with these different learning styles. If that's what you want to do, that's awesome. You know, most people are trying out different things, and there's no reason that you start something like the piano and then a couple months in you decide I want to do something else. But he also talks about the long-term satisfaction you get from the master's journey type of learning style, where you're really pursuing mastery, and it's that day after day practice where you're not so much in search of the quick thrills as much as you are just enjoying those plateaus, and they sometimes can last for a year or 2 years, and then you get a little spurt of progress, and then you're on the plateau again. So I really highly recommend this book. So I hope you enjoyed my little talk about what I consider the 3 levels of becoming an artist. And if you like this sort of stuff, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. I try to put videos out frequently. And also, if you're interested in improving your piano playing and learning more about my teaching, I've left some links to lessons and resources below. So make sure you check those out. And please like and comment and subscribe. It really means a lot when you like and comment and subscribe, because not only do I see that people are watching the videos, but it also means that they're picked up by the YouTube algorithm, which is great because more people will see the videos. All right, everybody, I'll see you next time. Happy practicing and enjoy your own journey.